Hello, I'm Kim Martin, Director of New Zealand Debt Management. Today, the New Zealand Government published its 2025 budget. As usual, there are implications for the New Zealand Government debt programme. A key message is that alongside the budget update, we have reduced the New Zealand Government bond programme for the next fiscal year that starts on the 1st of July from 40 billion New Zealand dollars to 38 billion. From there, gross annual issuance is forecast to remain on a downward trajectory to 28 billion New Zealand dollars in the year ending June 2029. Changes to the borrowing programme are based on changes to the fiscal outlook. So forecasts of the budget continue to show that the Crown will return to an operating surplus by the year ending June 2029, based on the measures shown on this chart. You can see that the trajectory is slightly different to that forecast at the half-year update in December, shown in light blue. New Zealand was last running an operating surplus in the year to June 2019, so prior to the COVID crisis. While net debt is gradually forecast to increase, net debt as a percentage of GDP is forecast to peak at 46% in the year to June 2028, before declining. This forms the backdrop for changes to the New Zealand Government borrowing programme. New Zealand Government bond issuance in the current fiscal year ending in June 2025 is expected to be close to 43 billion. This is $3 billion higher than forecast at the half-year update. This is not due to fiscal deterioration. Rather, as market conditions have been very supportive of issuance, we've taken the opportunity to pre-fund some of our future borrowing requirement. Consequently, we have reduced forecasts for the next 2 years of bond issuance by $2 billion each. We have already completed around 93% of this year's $43 billion programme. As you can see from the dark blue bars, issuance is $5 billion higher per year than otherwise would be the case for the next couple of years, as New Zealand Debt Management is repurchasing bonds the Reserve Bank of New Zealand originally bought during its large-scale asset purchase programme. By the middle of the 2027 calendar year, the Reserve Bank will no longer hold any New Zealand government bonds under its LSAP programme. Changes to the forecast borrowing programme are also shown here. Relative to the half-year update, $7 billion of bonds have been added to the programme. However, this is weighted to the end of the forecasts, with reduced forecasts for issuance in the next 2 years. New Zealand government bonds on issue are expected to reach just over 250 billion by the end of the forecast period. Short-term borrowings are also expected to be lower next year compared to forecasts at the half-year update. This is the current portfolio of New Zealand government bonds. Bars to the left side of the chart are nominals and those to the right are inflation index bonds. The green bar is our sovereign green bond first issued in November 2022. At the budget, we announced there will be 4 syndications in the fiscal year to June 2026. 3 will be tap syndications of existing nominal bonds, and 1 will introduce a new September 2050 inflation index bond line. The first syndication will be a tap syndication of the existing May 2031 nominal bond, and this is expected before the 31st of August this year. Alongside our syndications, we will continue our weekly bond tenders this month. Due to being well on track to complete this year's issuance task, we were able to reduce the volume offered each week at tender to 450 million, following 2 years of weekly volumes at 500 million. We continue to offer 2 to 3 nominal bonds per week at different parts of the curve. Each week, we also have the option to issue inflation index bonds, though this issuance is guided by market demand. Here you can see that the blue bars show the average tender cover ratio at each of our weekly nominal bond tenders this fiscal year. The black line represents a 5-year average at 2.9 times. You can see there has been strong demand this calendar year. The coverage ratio has averaged 4.1 times in the calendar year to date. We've also seen a pickup in secondary market turnover data recently. Secondary market turnover data is available on our website. It shows that turnover has been on an upward trend since September 2022. The colours represent different maturity buckets on the curve, and the data is shown quarterly. And we also continue to see strong global investor participation in our market. Currently, almost 62% of New Zealand government bonds are held by offshore investors, or around 106 billion in New Zealand dollar terms. This is a record high. It represents a steady increase of around 17 billion New Zealand dollars over the last 6 months. Once again, thank you so much for your interest in the New Zealand government securities market. As always, if you have any questions, please feel free to get in touch directly via the email address here. Thank you so much.